Welcome to the Alien Probe Podcast. The order of February 11th, 1949, that changed the name of Project Sign to Project Grudge had not directed any change in the operating policy of the project. It had, in fact, pointed out that the project was to continue to investigate and evaluate reports of sightings and unidentified flying objects. In doing this, standard intelligent procedures would be used. That's an excerpt from the report on unidentified flying objects. We have Dr. Bill here. Again, we're looking into Mr. Ruppelt's book. Welcome, Bill. How's it going?
Hey, how are you doing?
Living the dream, brother. Always.
I was just looking for Ruppelt's book.
Wait, I don't have any signs. So project.
I don't know what I did with it.
It's interesting that Project Grudge is the name Grudge. Isn't it kind of, I want to say ironic, but it's kind of weird. It's like there's a grudge. You have a grudge against somebody, you know? So it's kind of interesting that it started that.
Well, I think we mentioned that last time, and it's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah. We had Flat Earth Girl on last week, and then our producer was in a move. So apologies to everybody. It's been a couple weeks since we've had a new episode up, but we're gonna double or triple down this week. So stay tuned.
Triple down.
We're gonna triple down.
Project Ruppelt mentions in his book, people would ask him exactly that question, if calling it Project Grudge wasn't on purpose, and he kept saying no comment.
Yeah. Who named that? Who comes up with these names, I wonder? And, I thought about that as I was reading the book. I'm like, is there some guy? What are we going to call this? Is there some room? So what should we call it? The project that we're going to use to debunk, UFOs and aliens. We got to name it something that, and then they came up with that name. It's almost like they,
Well, it was somebody was trying to be funny, I think.
Yeah, it
worked.
I know what we'll do. I was laughing. So what happened this week? We got all We got all the answers. Right?
I'm actually in a state of confusion because I'm looking for my Ruppelt book.
I'm just trying to fill in here while we do it. So This week was the revelation. We're going to get all the answers this week about UFOs and what is going on with them throughout time. And we got absolutely what I would consider nothing more than we had before it came out. We know that, that the aircraft have, locked on to the Tic Tac UFO, and that it appeared, it came on, it appeared, and they painted it with their gun sights, and then it flew away at incredible speed back to where it started from, and it's pretty well documented. We've all seen it. I've seen it a bunch of times, just out of curiosity. I know we talked about you had sent over a couple of videos on a guy that was debunking them, and then another pilot that supported. And I agree that we keep seeing these things. Okay, I haven't seen it. I know you haven't either, but we believe that there's something out there. But go ahead.
I'm back.
Did you find the book?
Yeah,
you don't need that.
Crazy.
You're a PhD. You already have this committed to. You don't even need the book.
I have notes, but it's just nice to be able to sit down and.
You want that book in your hand?
No, I found it. I mean, I got too much junk here.
So we know less than when we started, really.
Yeah, it was a great report. The preliminary assessment of unidentified aerial phenomena, 25 June 21, Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
Now, I remember a couple of weeks ago when we were doing our podcast, you said that after this thing is released, we're going to want to have everybody on of our guests and be able to talk about this thing and the revelation that's going to come. You kiddingly said that, of course, but
I thought that would be a genuine thing for people to discuss.
Did you think that we were going to have some meat and potatoes stuff to really chow down on this thing?
Well, Project Grudge, which was designed specifically to discourage sort of the whole UFO sighting thing, had a 600-page report, and it's the government, so you expect like some sort of bureaucratic document dump. I expected something more. It's literally 8 pages.
Well, here's how bizarre this is. They never cover this stuff on our local TV, their news station, and they covered it. Like Channel 3, Channel 3, and we did the release. They never cover UFO, because it's wacky, right? They covered the release of this information, and they had a guy on. They said how, and they said, well, one page there's like 2 pages. One page is the index, and one page is, and
it's 6 pages. It's like 2 pages are the appendix. Yeah, Appendix A, Appendix B.
Yeah.
And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. And the scope and assumptions, there's nothing in that. And then I marked, everything that's like relevant in this, and you'll see that it's not much, but there is a few gems in here. The first thing is on page 3, the executive summary, unclassified. It says most of the UAPs reported probably do represent physical objects, given that a majority of UAPs were registered across multiple sensors to include radar, infrared, electro-optical, weapon seekers, and visual observation. So
we just don't.
They're saying they're physical objects.
Right.
So that's good. That's a start.
Something's there. We don't know what it is, but it's there.
And then they say there's 5 potential explanatory categories. They also go, these observations could be the result of sensor errors, spoofing, which is electronic countermeasures, radar and others, or observer misperception and require additional rigorous analysis. 5 potential explanatory categories. Airborne clutter, which I'm not sure what that is. Natural atmospheric phenomena. USG or U.S. industrial development programs. So that, including that in that list, is sort of weird because they specifically say that these sightings that they cite in the report were not U.S. government or U.S. industrial development programs, or not U.S. government programs.
But were they not U.S. government programs? Were they Russian?
I don't know. I
don't know.
Haven't made that. Well, that's a second. Foreign adversary systems is a separate category, and catch-all other bin, which other bin includes aliens.
But does it say that? It just says
no. It doesn't say
that we say that. But
we say that.
Yeah. But we're no further ahead. What is ironic is we read this Ruppelt book, and it's almost like we're reading events from today.
Oh, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. And this is this almost it's like they cribbed this or copied this, which we'll get to someday as we wade our way through the Ruppelt book.
Grind through the book.
Grind through the book. The Roberts report from January 14th, 18th, 1953. And actually, I have the Durant report of the Robertson panel proceedings, which I'm not sure what that is, but this is like a compiled report. But this isn't the original Roberts panel report. This is something that was sort of compiled from different release of documents.
Right.
And this isn't the original Roberts report because there's a paragraph, excuse me, in Ruppelt's book from the Roberts report, and that paragraph is not in this compiled report. So the Roberts report, which we'll get into, the Roberts report was basically they basically said move forward with Project Bluebook. It's the same. It's basically it's the same crap that we're seeing in this thing. It's like, oh, we need to take this matter import. We need to take this situation seriously, and we need to specifically, what do they say? Build instruments or look at technologies to
be able to figure out what the shit is. Yeah.
Figure out what it is. Yeah. And but the Roberts report, they did the same thing. They said, we're going to do, we're going to build these cameras and we're going to do all this other stuff. And none of it happened.
Yeah.
The Roberts report also said, let's do a disinformation campaign and convince the public to stay away from this, because everybody that says, if you say you see a UFO or, whatever, we're just going to paint you as a nut. And that was part of the Roberts report CIA agenda.
If a UFO landed on your property today, who would you report it to?
Nobody.
Yeah, you wouldn't tell anybody.
I would.
Well, you're worried about being labeled a crackpot. I'm personally don't care.
No, I wouldn't tell anybody. I would do my best to capture the aliens and take over their ship. Is exactly what I would do. I mean, I'm not going to screw around.
Yeah, you get thrown against the bulkhead.
Yeah, I'm not going to screw around. I'm going to capture and take over.
Bring all the weaponry you can carry and just,
Yeah, and then it's mine, and I am going to sell the technology to the highest bidder.
Wow, that's a good
whatever I can manage.
That's a good retirement plan, though. That's a good retirement plan.
It's the only retirement plan I have. Hey, so there's this other book. Hang on, real quick.
Okay. As we grind our way through chapter, I think this is chapter 4 of the Dark Ages in Ruppelt's book.
So I'm back. Are you there?
What you got?
So the Day After Roswell book. I know you got a copy by Colonel Philip J. Corso, and that's basically the crash, saying that there was a crash of a UFO at Roswell, and they took that technology and developed like microchips and lasers and fiber optics.
Don't forget Velcro.
Velcro, really?
Yeah.
And Kevlar too. I haven't read it, but so yeah. So if I can capture a UFO, I am capturing a UFO for the tech, and I will exploit it to the best of my ability.
I think that's a good plan. I'll develop that too on my end.
I think it is the big plan for the government and anyone else.
So the report comes out. There's no Area 51. There's no aliens. We have any ships captured. Do you think we have any ships? Do you think there's ships? I mean, maybe not aliens.
I don't know. I don't know. The problem with a lot of this stuff, and the problem is any sort of evidence that we have is witness testimony. And witness testimony is always questionable. Plus, we've had, 70 years of, here from the Roberts report, 70 years of an educational program of training and debunking. At the end of this time, the dangers related to flying saucers should have been greatly reduced, if not eliminated. The dangers are people believing in them, and the Soviets using the threat of flying saucers to provoke a panic in the U.S. while they do a sneak attack or something.
It's almost like they know stuff, but it's like a soft release. Very slow, we're going to give them, okay, we're going to say, okay, there's something there. We agree. We agree, and we're releasing the information that we know, the gun camera footage and all that. We know that they're out there, but also don't want to come out and say what you and I both know and what we've discussed this week is that we just don't have the tech to figure it out. To track them. Well, we're going to get tech. We need that. They agree that they have to do something to find them, but we don't have the technology to do it. We can't keep up with that shit.
Well, I was thinking about that, and it's like the weapon systems, and your Navy contact could actually sort of chime in on this and with real information, not sort of speculative stuff. But you design a weapon system to do specific or a sensor system. You do a sensor system to do a specific task, and on military ships or aircraft, those tasks are to detect, high speed missiles, which have a decent size to them, high speed missiles, aircraft of a certain size, and they're designed to detect and work against the signatures that these specific objects produce. So aircraft or missiles will produce a certain heat signature or a radar signature or whatever signature that they're testing for. And you go outside of those parameters, and these instruments aren't necessarily can see much. So if you take advanced system using advanced propulsion systems, whatever that is, and advanced materials, they're not designed to detect this stuff. So, but like with the Tic Tac stuff, they were picking these things up on radar. You watched Phenomenon just recently.
Yes. Yes.
And I just watched it. I watched it again last night for the second time. I'd seen it.
Where'd you pick it up at? It was on the Travel Channel or some weird channel.
Yes.
You were able to pull it out of there?
Yeah, I was able to find it. Actually, I think I watched it on Amazon.
Yeah. Oh.
I think I might have. Yeah, I did whatever you do with Amazon, and that's where I saw it first.
Yeah.
So I watched it like 6 months ago, and then just watched it again after reading all this stuff. And it's interesting because it's like I didn't put a lot of the stuff, faces to people and tie it together. But one of the things that struck me last night was the Nimitz. I think it might have been the Tic Tac. They said that the Tic Tac actually employed electronic countermeasures.
The UFO did?
Yeah, because they sent out, so you had the two pilots that went out and originally were targeted in on it with unarmed craft. And they came back to the carrier, and then another plane was sent out after it. And I think this might have been a electronics detection one specifically. And that one couldn't get a lock on it. And they said in the Phenomenon video, with somebody who was looking at it, said it had deployed electronic countermeasures and then shot off. So that's
it doesn't even need that. I mean, yeah, maybe they did, and because they said it, that's fine. But what would they even need that for?
But it's interesting that it had the ability to do that, which says, I mean, what's going on? I mean, is it
concerned that it's going to get blown out of the sky by one of our aircraft?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, maybe it was like, but it's so there's a lot more. They have a lot of information, like from their sensors and all this other stuff, and they didn't release that in this report.
So you think with Lazar and all that, do we have those things? Do you think we have?
Oh, you mean do we have
any UFOs? I know we asked this question before.
Well, another thing that was interesting in the Phenomenon movie is that the Rockefeller guy, he writes a letter asking for information specifically on UFOs, and I guess the guy had he's part of the Rockefeller, family,
right?
And his letter was asking for specific information about Roswell. Why did he pick that one?
Well,
and then they came out with the Roswell report that just said, "Oh, it was the same weather balloon that we saw last time, Project Mogul."
But
it was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Did they find?
It was. So they came out with this report. So, but it's interesting because this Corso book which a major, I think it was The Guardian, classified it as one of the top 10 hoax books in the history of mankind, up there with the Hitler Diaries and Alfred E. Newman's Mad Men. No, Howard Hughes' biography or something. And the only reason they said it was hoax was because of the forward by he conned Senator Strom Thurmond to write a introduction for it. Well, the senator wrote an introduction because it was he knew the guy. He says, well, write an introduction for my book. And the guy's like, okay. It's like a page. It says, I knew the guy. He's a hard worker, and he's smart, basically.
Yeah.
And this guy, I was thinking about it. So if this was true, and this is purely speculative, if they had discovered microchips in the wreckage of the Roswell ship. So if you look at a modern microchip, you can pop it apart and you can look at it under a microscope and you can see what it is. And you can go, wow, this is amazing. And
yes.
Think about it in 1950s.
Yeah, printed circuits weren't a thing back then.
Yeah, but they were invented within the next 10 years.
Yeah, because we found them in the ship along with
Velcro.
Yeah.
Well, and this guy is saying it's reverse engineering. So here you go. The U.S. had two people at two different labs that pioneered microchips. Intel was one of them, and Texas Instrument guy was another one. And so what happens if they come out and go, oh yeah, we got the original microchips that we reverse engineered. We got them from a spaceship, from a flying saucer.
Right.
And I was thinking about that. I go, what does that do with the patents and the intellectual property on all this?
Well,
so it's like,
the aliens could be like, aliens could come out. Hey, that was ours first, and we have interstellar patent on it.
You owe us some money. So it's like, what's the legal ramifications if they come out with some of this high tech stuff like microchips and other things? A lot of this stuff, I don't know where the patent situation is at this point in time, but it's like, what's the legal ramifications of coming out and saying, yeah, we didn't really invent it. We're not that smart. We reverse engineered it from an alien spaceship. So just think about that coming out. How do you explain that?
Yeah.
So
it would be really weird. And the next thing is the aliens themselves. I mean, we have gun camera footage and we have other footage that we've seen that the government admits exists and it's real. But it's interesting. You sent me the book, The Encounter at Buff Ledge. And
I got from Kufos.
And I just want to say, one of the illustrations is, they've got the flying saucer is the UFO, UAP, was 12 feet high. It was right next to the dock. It's 12 feet high, and it's got images. It's got two entities in there. I don't think they could really, and they were taken. And I know there's a lot more to that story, but we don't have any footage of any aliens by the government that they're releasing.
Well, there's other people that have said they have images of aliens. Oh yeah, I'm looking at the drawing.
Why not let those images out? Okay, there is aliens, and I run across I look at everything weird because that's what we do. And there was one story about a guy that was in the Air Force. He was in White Sands, I believe. And I don't know if we talked about this yet, but it was on was it YouTube? It might have been on Netflix. It was weird. Just came up. And this guy said that they gave him a guard position out in the middle of, there was a shack to stay in, a bed and all that. Yeah, a Quonset hut. And he was the only one there. And that they had these entities would come out from the desert. These aliens would come out from the desert, and then he was just, I don't know what his exact job was but they would come out. They were They didn't talk. It was all mental. You could hear them through your thoughts, kind of thing. And they were like large. They were like humanoid. They weren't. They weren't the Greys. They were just humans. Like we talked about. And they were like real tall. And then they had like a baby, and then the baby would pick up a Coke can and be fascinated with it and things. I mean, it's really weird. This dude was weird too, but he claims that that in I believe it's White Sands. He drives out, and of course it's a secure area. You'll never get in there. But they all of a sudden just kind of appear out of and they have ships, and they like fly off in these ships out of that area, and they come and go. It's the whole story about how they come and go all the time. And, but what I wanted to mention is, we say we can't track them. Well, we can track if we're under attack with, thermal nuclear missiles. We can see them on a screen. They have the threat board at, wherever at Cheyenne Mountain or whatever, like you saw War Games, I'm sure, where they, I assume that's somewhat real, where we've got the theater, which is the world, and they launch these missiles, and you can track them as they're going. Those are at a phenomenal speed that they're tracking these missiles, and they can identify them. They can paint them, identify them with satellites, with our satellite tracking systems.
Yeah.
And they have an incredible speed. I don't know what that is, but I know it's pretty fast. As they're, going.
They go. I think they're suborbital, so they are. So they're thousands of miles an hour.
Thousands of miles an hour, but yet we can't. Maybe because it's our technology or the world's technology, we can do it, but we can't track these UFOs. I mean, when they, things are darting around from our satellite tracking systems.
Well, it's the same thing I said before. Those systems are designed to detect specific signatures and specific type objects. So a nuclear missile, a nuclear war, well, they carry multiple warheads. So they fly up, they're going to give a heat signature.
And
then, and then there's other signatures, whatever they are, after they hit suborbital, and they do the separate warheads are launched separately.
Right.
The sensors and the ways of detecting are designed specifically to detect those objects. And that's why espionage has always been a big deal, is because you want to know what they're made of, you want to know where they're stationed, you want to know, how they function, and, the sensor systems are designed to specifically detect these type of weapons. And in the report that was just released, they actually say there's the challenges, UFP collection challenges. They say there's social culture stigmas and sensor limitations, which I was sort of shocked to see that. And they say it here: the sensors mounted on U.S. military platforms are typically designed to fulfill specific missions. As a result, these sensors are not generally suited for identifying UAPs. Which, I mean, they're pointing out the same problem. And you go back to, the Roberts report and Project Blue Book under Ruppelt. They were talking about designing specific sensors and systems to detect UFOs. They were even actually at one point they were talking about having a dedicated air wing to intercept UFOs, but they're like, oh, we can't afford that.
Well, plus, where the hell would you put it? They just pop in here and there. I mean, where would this thing be?
Yeah, it was.
It's you'd have to have a million. It'd be like, internal threat.
You have a specific jet's task to that at different, out there at Travis, northern, southern.
Yeah.
California. You have one up in Washington. You put one at White Sands. I mean, you distribute them around.
Well, they're talking about having a more advanced technology to track them. But let me just throw this out there: they were able to paint that thing with a gun camera. Yeah, but
they weren't able to get a lock, though.
They weren't able to get radar lock on it. They just saw
that's when in the phenomena video they were saying that the second fighter that went out was a intelligence fighter, whatever they call that.
Yeah.
That one went out. They got gun camera image on the their sensor package. Got an image of the Tic Tac. The Tic Tac started doing countermeasures, and then they weren't able to get a lock, and it took off. So
well, they got some. I don't know. They said, is that what it said? Because
well,
it looked like they got when I saw the
there's
video.
The gimbal one. There's other ones where they got the gimbal one. They were able to get a lock, and then they got a couple other ones. They got locks, and that's definitive. But on the I'm talking about the Tic Tac one specifically.
Yeah.
And that's the one where you had the two pilots. Well, you know what the Tic Tac is, but that's the one that gets the most attention, and has, I think, the best. And that's also the one where the people came in onto the carrier group or the intelligence gathering ship and snapped up all the
evidence.
So what's the question? What's going on there? So people speculated that, well, it was some sort of experimental device because they came and got all the intel off of it.
Right.
So it's a hell of an experimental device. But now we have this report that comes out and says, I don't know, of the 144 reports, they identified one, which was a balloon, and which was swamp gas. No, which was a balloon, a large deflated balloon, and
I don't know.
Reports involved observation with multiple sensors. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it wasn't, but they also, I thought they said that these were not. They had determined that these were not, secret test vehicles.
Either that, they could be Chinese or whatever. We've talked about that before.
Who's the guy?
That's pretty incredible speed, though. I mean, if you think of it, and the changing of direction and all that. I mean, they fly, 1,500 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden they make a right turn.
Well, Elizondo makes a good point, and he said that it's probably not Chinese because we were seeing this in the 1950s. China didn't have the technology in the 50s. They might have it now. But in the 1950s, this was not China, and the big concern was that it was the Soviet Union, and the intelligence agencies and all this, and Project Blue Book came up and said, no, it's not the Soviet Union. Let's make everybody think they're crazy if they see this stuff. So I don't know what's going on.
Speaking of Elizondo, it's like we were talking. Elizondo, Louis. It seems that he knows something, but I thought he doesn't know anything. But I think now I kind of changed my opinion on that. I think he knows something, and he's pressuring, and he's a big part of this release of information. He knows something, but he's not going to say it himself. He can't come out with it himself. We were making fun of him because he wouldn't. Well, we were making fun of him. We were disappointed because he wouldn't give. When he was interviewed,
he can't cross. He can't cross a certain line.
Yeah.
And that line probably has to do with the type of sensor data that they've gathered and the systems that gather that information and places where these incidents may have occurred. So, I mean, he's got to be careful because it's, as you saw, I sent you that article from Politico.
Yeah.
Where it says ex-official who revealed UFO project accuses Pentagon of disinformation campaign.
Yes.
So he wants to maintain his security clearance, which is a big deal. I mean, once you got it, well, once you got it, it's a good thing. You don't want to lose it, because if you lose it, it's a lot harder to get it back. I know a guy who didn't tell me where he worked, but he worked for a 3-letter government agency, and he left the agency for a while and then wanted to go back. and he didn't pass his background check when he came back the second time. And that was really hard on him. And he wanted to go back to this agency. They wouldn't take him back. And it wasn't his fault. The background check, they screwed him. They just screwed him.
Did they say why specifically he was?
I
did
actually
they even do that? I mean, do they even do that? Yeah, that's the reason.
He failed the lie detector twice.
Well, then don't lie about shit.
I mean, the lie detector doesn't. The lie detector test is.
Yeah, I know. They're whatever.
Yeah, he. The problem is that he had roommates. I was actually interviewed by a marshal, a retired U.S. marshal. It was great to talk to this guy, because he used to do witness protection for mafia dudes.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, it was awesome talking to this guy, and he came in and he interviewed me, and what I found out later from the guy is that
were you a point of contact for the guy? Is that why you got interviewed?
He put me down as a reference. Yeah.
Okay.
So he the thing is that they said that he wasn't truthful on part of his lie detector test. He asked to do it a second time, and they failed him again. And what I think happened is that someone else in his, not me, someone else in his, it wasn't me, someone else in his, because this guy's golden.
Yeah.
But someone else in his background check said something, and they had this data point and took it as fact when it wasn't true. And when they would ask the question on the lie detector test, I don't think he failed that portion, but since they had this data point, they want to use the question as a pressure point to further question you on that particular topic.
Right.
And he kept saying, no, that never happened. And they, that was it. So he had someone in his background that basically just screwed him. But I think he's better. I know he's better off at this point. So I know what he's doing. He's doing a lot. He's doing 100% better. And he may eventually get back if he wants to go back with a 3-letter agency.
Right.
But he will, like I said, he had the clearance. He left the agency. He let his clearance lapse, and then he had to go through the whole system again to get his clearance. With interviews, they go into your background and they do all this stuff, and he wasn't able to get his clearance again. So Elizondo is fighting the Pentagon because they obviously somebody in the Pentagon is mad at him talking about this stuff. And they said in this political article that they were rescheduling his security clearance renewal.
Right.
And that's just so that they can go around and find dirt on him and find an excuse not to give him to renew his clearance.
Well, so then he'll have. I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. Okay, you remove his security clearance, so it's like, well, I got nothing to lose now. I'm just talking. Right. I mean,
yeah, you do. You have. They can put you in jail.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. A lot of people risk that to get. All it takes is one. How long are you going to be in jail?
Well, he's got a family. He's got a pension.
Yeah, and he's got. Yeah, they can do
a lot of damage. They can put you in jail. They can take your pension.
Well, yeah, they can, but it's kind of like what these. Don Quixotes of the world that want all this information out. If you're really a hero, then yeah, you take a risk. And it's like, tell us what you've seen. Tell us, Mr. Elizondo, what really is it out there? And that's the
the flip side of the coin is he has some juicy stuff or he doesn't have anything and he wants to maintain that aura of mystery.
Yeah, and he's got a company or something, a production company or something, right?
Oh, it's with that Blink 185
guy. 182. Come on.
Whatever. I, yeah,
It's
I don't
however
know.
many times a minute you blink your eyes or whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
182. Yeah, I do that.
That's where come on, you're a professor. You know that's you blink
Yeah, yeah.
182 times a minute. And
A
that's where
second. I
is a
blinked that in a
second.
second.
Wow. You are an alien.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and then there's the To the Stars Academy, I think it's called.
Yeah. So he
So I
was
don't know.
so he doesn't want to say anything. So he to expand like we did earlier in the week, it's like he's pressuring or he's coming out with this, and he had Harry Reid on his side who's since retired, but Harry came on. I saw. Did you see? He had an interview.
Yeah, yeah.
And did you see
He's done
that?
several. He
The
did 60 Minutes too, and he did some other stuff.
Well, he did. Harry came out right after the report this week, and they asked him, what is this?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, what is this? What is this? You know, and he just said that it's a preliminary. Harry just said Harry didn't say anything bad. He simply stated that this was a preliminary. This is the first part of. Now this is the first part. There's another part, right? I mean, this is a preliminary. This is a first of another part that we haven't seen. That maybe they said that
The classified portion?
the classified portion has been sent to members of Congress, and that we may never know what's in that. So, what is the purpose of the whole? They're making the public happy because now they can acknowledge the fact that we know there's UFOs, but we can't do shit to figure out what they're doing, why they're doing it, why are they even here? I mean, that's the question since way back when.
I mean, it's the same thing that we saw that we're seeing in Ruppelt's book that was happening in the 1950s, early 1950s.
Right.
There was enormous pushback at the Pentagon against the UFO stuff, and the only reason that Project Blue Book, Grudge went forward, and then after that it was Blue Book. The only reason these programs moved forward was because of political and public pressure. And it's the same thing here. There's a lot of political and public pressure to get information. I don't know. The U.S. government, I don't know. There's information gets lost. People have they have their fiefdoms that they protect. You, I mean, if you go into sort of the speculative part of it, it's if they have captured UFOs, like I said, if you're dealing with advanced technology that isn't, in this day and age, this stuff wouldn't be worth millions or billions. It's trillions. It's probably quadrillions worth of money. Look at if the whole microchip thing, as Corso talks about in The Day After Roswell, if that is a true story, or was a true story, look at the microchip industry. There's microchips in everything now. That's a trillions of dollars at stake. So if the government or agencies or people or private enterprises have any of this technology, it's worth trillions. So there's a very strong monetary reason to keep it secret. Plus, there's the IP issue. It's like, well, I didn't invent microchips. I found it on a spaceship. Well, I'm not sure you can patent stuff that you found, and it's the spaceship belonged to somebody. So you're essentially taking their technology and you're saying that
claiming it as your own.
Yeah. So that's a whole sort of story there. One of the things that I liked in this report is that they go, they need better reporting and accounting. Here they go. The initial focus. The UAP has begun developing interagency processing workflows to ensure both collection and analysis will be well informed and coordinated. I actually have some forms here that they could use. Let's see. U.S. Air Force Technical Information Sheet. This questionnaire has been prepared so that you can give the U.S. Air Force as much information as possible concerning the unidentified aerial phenomenon that you have observed.
Is this new or was this from old?
Oh, this is the forms that Project Bluebook put together.
Oh,
this is the 11-page form.
Yeah, I looked. I saw that.
Yeah. So they're like, we need to put together some uniform reporting system. I got a form you can start with.
Yeah.
How's that?
You know,
so it's only.
You lose interest after the first 2 pages. Yeah, that's too much work.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. You know, they want to know everything, and it actually is a good way to. It actually is a good way to capture the whatever information they can if they get it in a timely manner, because your mind has a tendency to. Yeah, after a while, it's kind of like you start inserting your own items in there that weren't really there.
I think I saw, and
I think I saw that, and
I think this was happened, and this was that. Yeah, and then I remember this.
Well, if you think about technology, where were we 50 years? Where were we in 1900? 50 years, or roughly 1900? Where were we technology-wise in 1900? You and I both know we weren't. As opposed to
changed hugely.
50 years after 1950, where are we? I mean, it's
we had radar, sonar, airplanes, automobile.
Yeah, we didn't even have 1900. Did we even have? I mean, they were riding those bicycles with the big front tire on them still, right?
Well, in 1900, you had steamships, you had railroads. You would have I think you had gas lighting at least. Might have had electric lighting. I'd have to look it up. But the standard of living and the quality of life in 1900 was pretty darn good. You didn't have. You had a lot of convenience. You also had the. You had railroads, telegraph, lots of newspapers. Tram cars. If you lived in a city, you had lots of really good public transportation. If you were modestly well off, you would have most people. I mean, if you're rural, you would have horses. But if in the city, if you modestly well off, you could have horses at a local stable, or even houses. I remember some houses in Chicago. The little garages on some of these houses were actually designed to hold a horse and a carriage.
Yeah.
So you could have your horse, you'd have your carriage. You might pay a guy to come in and take care of the horse and deal with the carriage when you got home from work or whatever, or do it yourself, or have the kids do it. Standard of living and lifestyle was pretty good. If you wanted to take a vacation, you could take a train anywhere in the country. You take a ship, a steam-powered ship, and cross the Atlantic and go to Europe. So that the world was pretty modern in 1900, but then 50 years later, we got airplanes, you got radio, television was coming up, electricity, everything was electrified. So the big change was in air power, automobile.
Not to mention space stations.
1950.
No, but I mean now we've got space stations.
Now we have space stations. Now there's 2 space stations. There's ours and the Russians.
Oh, I didn't know we had 2. I thought there was only one.
We have one, and the Chinese just put one up.
Oh, wow.
It's now manned. Yeah, there's Chinese space station, and then there's ours with the Russians. And apparently I don't know if this is still true, but the Americans and the Russian astronauts, it was like the siblings that are fighting in their bedroom. There's like a line down the middle of the ship where, the Russians are on one side and the Americans are on the other side.
God,
Nobody talks to each other. It was like that a few years ago. I don't know what's going on now. Yeah, it's just crazy.
But I mean, to me, it's kind of obvious that because Roswell seems to be like I don't want to equate. I'm not religious, but year 0 before Christ, after Christ. It's almost like Roswell technology. Roswell is the before Roswell and after Roswell technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, everything is, that's year one, that's year zero. I mean,
well, that's year zero if you think about it, and like this guy is saying, it's year zero if you say like, so if you found a microchip on the Roswell wreckage, and you could take it apart and you look at it at a microscope and you go, this is an electronic device. You can see what it looks like. If you have enough of them, you can analyze the materials that they're made of. You could make conjectures about what it does. And if it's like modern microchips just use direct current, you could actually run some current through it and take measurements and see what that does. And then the whole process is, okay, we can see this, we see what it does, we know what it's made of. let's try and make it. And 10 years after Roswell, microchips were being made. I got a cough. Hang on. So it's plausible in this. If you look at sort of the technological timeline, it's very plausible that if they found microchips on Roswell, it could fit into the technological timeline. And one of the things that's always irritated me about the computer revolution is our hardware has always been more advanced than our software. And we're still at that state where our software is still catching up with the software. And that also is not that I believe this, but this is also an argument for the potential that like microchips were a very advanced technology that we adapted and developed that sort of leapfrogged us forward. But I don't know. The history of the microchips or development is very well documented. I like the idea. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah.
Did you fall asleep?
No, I'm just looking at the time. We should probably wrap so we can get past this, we can get past this episode, this chapter in Ruppelt's book.
Chapter
basically,
5.
Yeah. So basically, the Dark Ages. We know that they basically moved on from Grudge. In the end,
well, the Dark Ages was.
That was Grudge. That was where they debunking all of. Yeah,
that was, and what Ruppelt says is that the standard intelligence procedures were no longer being used by Project Grudge. Everything was being evaluated on the premise that UFOs couldn't exist, no matter what you see or hear. Don't believe it. That's also the point, this is good, is Project Grudge brought in Dr. Hynek, and his job was to analyze the data from these observations and determine if they were, hoaxes, balloons, planets, sundogs, or whatever. And so that was a bonus. He came in, and Hynek actually, this was the beginning of his journey for UFO investigation, because there were many cases that he saw that people that were unexplained. And there's a case, I was trying to look this up just before we got on. There's a case on 7/7/1947 where somebody took pictures of a UFO, and Hynek said that this one was actually pretty compelling.
Yeah.
And wanted it to be further investigated. And he tried to get the negatives and the photographs. And the guy that took the picture, I couldn't find, in the official sort of stuff I think find information. I have to look further. So the guy that took the picture, Air Force, he gave the camera, the film, and the photos that he'd had made to the Air Force, and then it just disappeared into a black hole. And Hynek had read this report. It's like report number 40 that they'd had, and he's like, we need to look further into this. I'd like more information. They couldn't get it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and also during Project Grudge, there was a couple Saturday Evening Post articles that came out in April and May of 1949, which put a positive spin on UFOs, and basically, I think I'd have to look at the articles again, but they basically said, something's going on, something interesting is going on.
Well, then Keogh put out an article on True, Right.
True. Kehoe's article came out, and then the response of the Air Force was
shrugging their shoulders. I don't know.
Well, the response by the Air Force was, okay, the policy is a general officer would hold a short press conference, flash his stars, and speak the magic words: hoaxes, hallucinations, and the misidentification of known objects. And they figured that would just drive everything out of people's minds, and everyone would forget about UFOs. It hasn't happened in 70 years.
And it's only gotten worse. People. When I was on the phone with a customer this week, and we were talking about various subjects, and inevitably I will ask, "So you believe in UFOs and aliens?" Somebody's going to mark me as a crackpot eventually, but it's interesting. The response is like, "There's millions of planets out there. How can there not be anything else?" And that's always been the thing. Yeah, I mean, there's millions of planets, but can anybody find us? We can't find anything yet. We don't have the technology to go running around looking. But we have our telescopes that could.
And the spectrographic analysis and stuff. And I was reading that book, Extraterrestrial, about that object that came through the solar system that one guy, the Harvard astronomer, thought it was a light sail. Yeah. And I didn't know this because I don't follow this stuff, but I can't remember. He says there's like 1/3 of the planets in the the galaxy, the universe have water. Right. So, and some huge number are potentially habitable. So it's just not. There's that. I also sent you that thing about the religious person's take on extraterrestrial life, which I hadn't known about, and that this one guy was just saying that it's not compatible with the Bible and stuff. Yes. Yeah. Which is interesting. I hadn't seen that before. So I guess this guy is a well-known religious figure. So there is a body of people.
That's something we've talked about that before. Where is this going to be a problem for religion? Religious people. Of course, I don't know what percentage of people are quote unquote religious. But I mean, if we decide all of a sudden aliens pop up, we've got bodies frozen in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base or whatever,
or they're shaking hands with the president. Yeah,
one or the other. Is this what kind of a rift is this going to cause in humanity? Is this going to be a huge problem where people are just going to freak the hell out? Or are we ready for this? I mean, you and I are ready for it. Yeah, that's fine. Well, we got aliens.
I've been ready.
I've been ready for a long time, but it's kind of like they're not shooting at us. They're not. I know the probe thing. Oh yeah, they're taking us into their ship and they're sticking probes up our butts. There's not much of that coming out anymore. If it is, I'm not hearing about it.
There's the whole abduction thing, which comes back to the point of like you just did that video with Flat Earth.
Yeah. Pearl. Yeah.
And reading some of these things, and I'm reading a little bit on subduction stuff. I think one of the things is you have to be open to people's experiences and their opinions, which seems to be diminishing in this day and age.
Yes.
And not just look at everything and say it's crap. So you just had a person that has a specific worldview that is interesting.
Yes.
I don't necessarily believe her worldview, but I'm looking forward to. She had some sort of documentary or something coming up.
Yeah, Earthers. I'm looking forward to that.
I am too. I think I'm looking forward to it. I want to see it. So if you believe something, show me the evidence and convince me. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to take a lot of hokum and swallow it whole. Show me your evidence. Tell me your story. So I could tell you a story from grad school if we got time. Do you want to keep going?
No, we got to wrap it up, bud. Hold that for next time.
Maybe next time.
But for next time, we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Alien Probe Podcast. We welcome comments, questions, or requests to alienprobepodcast@gmail.com. Visit us on Facebook at the Alien Probe Podcast, our website at alienprobe.net, Twitter and Instagram at Alien Probe Pod. Find us at Spotify, Apple, Google, and all podcast platforms. And now, catch us on YouTube. Thanks to our senior producer, Robert Anthony. Thanks again, Bill. Until next time.
All right.